Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. And the previous class we have discussed regarding to the string operations or string methods, which are useful for us to apply many kind of operations through strings. It has been taken into consideration in the previous class. And today we'd like to come across with one new concept, the Python concept, that is repetition structures, otherwise the loops, otherwise the iterative structures, iterative control structures. You could consider whatever the name it may be. It does have this many number of names. Then how these things will be, let us have a clear discussion on this. And as far as Python is concerned, so in Python, control statements are allows the computer for repeat an action for several number of times. Okay, several number of times in the sense a finite number of times. Very specifically speaking, finite number of times. Okay, you must be given some condition. Based on the condition, so those many number of times it is going to be evaluated. So such kind of action, such kind of control structures are called as iterative control structures. Okay, and these control structures might be also called as loops. They are also called as loops. Looping in the sense always to be executed for several number of times. That several number of times in the sense what you call finite number of times. Same set of statements are going to be repeated. So they are called as loops. And these loops could be, so whatever the iteration, for every iteration, whatever the set of statements could be executed. So more technically speaking, they are called as pass, otherwise an iteration. Either of these two technical words. After execution of one set of statement for the first time, and it will be evaluate the condition or evaluate some other kind of issue, and it will be goes for next execution, and so on and so forth for number of times or finite number of times. These finite number of times, all these things will be gets executed for number of times. Each and every time it is called as an iteration or as a pass. Okay. So iterative control structures, as I quoted just before, it could be executed some set of or certain set of actions for finite number of times. Okay. If you are unable to define the finiteness of that particular iterative structure, then that could be called as infinite loop. Infinite in the sense your computer will be executes, and forever it is being executed. It will not come out from the iterative structure. So that is why that is called as infinite loop. Okay, let us discuss something about all those loops. And here we do have, technically speaking, we do have two different types of loops. So those loops might be, so number one looping will be definite iteration. So definite iteration in the sense, it must be known that how many times it is going to be executed. How many times it could be executed. Yes, that loop is being repeated. So how many times it must be known. Okay, it is known to that particular loop and that particular computer. Okay, whereas indefinite, also one more thing, kind of thing is there, that is indefinite iteration. What does it mean? So program will be decides. Simply speaking, I'd like to give you some example here, then you could understand. So definite in the sense, it has been given some certain final value as a constant. As a constant value you have given as a final value for execution. That is called as a definite iteration. Indefinite in the sense, so instead of putting the constant value, you have to give a variable, and that variable will be taken as input during the execution of the program. That such kind of loops are called as, such kind of iterations are called as indefinite iterations. For the first time, let me give you the clear examples after probably a couple of minutes. So that is the difference between these two. So you have to specify the constant value as a final value or final execution value, whereas a variable can be taken as a final value that is called as indefinite iteration. So that is why program has determined when it could be get stops. What does it means? You have to give a variable. User maybe gives for the first input, user maybe gives 10. Therefore, your same kind of actions will be executed for 10 times. Probably user for the second execution, user may be given some 20. So program will be executes for 20 times at that moment. So you could not choose in what is the final value over there. So because user maybe give some kind of input, based on the input, your set of or sequence of certain sequence of actions are going to be evaluated. So that is why they are called as indefinite iterative control statements. Definite in the sense, instead of providing variable as a final value, you have to give a constant. Always it could be executed for those many number of times only. Okay, constant, for example, in a program, you may be given some 10 as final value. Always it is being executed for 10 times only. It is not more than 10 times. If you consider the tables book, if you observe the tables book, for every number, the table will be repeated for 20 times only. Okay, for every number, one ones are one, one twos are two, one threes are three, and so on and so forth. 120s are 20. That's all. In tables book, for every number, you could not have more than 20. So that is called as a definite iteration. That is called as a definite identification of the table. Okay, indefinite in the sense you are unknown to have exactly where you have to start to identify the tabling. So that is what the difference between these two. And let us discuss something about a very important loop. That loop is for loop. It is also called as a count control loop. It's also called as a count control loop. As far as your C programming language, in your C, your for loop could be have some three different statements will be there in the header of for loop. Let me consider for, so expression 1, so expression exp1 semicolon, so exp2 semicolon, and again exp3. Like this it could be happens to have with your C programming language. So here this is assignment and this is the condition where exactly you have to decide that when it could be gets exit from the loop, and this is the passage of the condition. Passage in the sense either it is increment or it is a decrement, of course based on the particular activity of your loop. So you have to either increment or decrement will be gets happen. So like this you have with you in your C programming, specifically speaking in C programming. But in for Python, you could not have such something like this. You are not supposed to define what is the initial value, what is the final value, and what is the update value. You could not define something like this. Instead, how you could use here in the sense, so for some particular variable in, I have all these what do you call keywords of this for loop has been bolded here. For one variable, you could take your own variable, the name will be your own. In, there is a method, there is a specific method in Python. That method is called as a range. That method is called as a range. Range of course, start value, stop value, step value. Let me explain what these are. Don't confuse at this moment. I will explain progressively. Okay. So here, for each and every process, you could see these are the set of statements which are being executed here. These are the set of statements which are being executed here. For example, our variable will be I in a range of so and so value. Then what exactly it could be done? For every pass of this set of actions, first pass it will be look into range next value, and so on and so forth. Let me give you the example, then it's very easy to understand. Let me go ahead with the example here, then you could understand very easily. So look at this particular program here. Yeah, let me write a particular thing first. I'd like to produce so 1 to n numbers. So before going to take this particular thing, okay, after execution of this particular thing, let me explain what is the range, what is the specific activity of the method range here. For I in so a range of some 6, for example, range of some 5. It may be taken single parameter, it may be taken 2 parameters, or it could also be taken 3 parameters. Okay, each parameter does have its own so speciality or identity. What is that identity here in the sense? Let me explain. So if you take something like this, and then obviously when loop will be get started, then you have to place this colon here, and if you press enter, it will be set with automatically set, because this is the ID of IDE of Python, which was prepared by Python Corporation only. So automatically it will be set. You could write your own statement here. Okay, the statement is a print. I'd like to produce 0 to n, I mean 0 to 5 values. So not exactly equal to 5. Total number of outputs will be so 5 different numbers. That is my intention. Okay. So at the end, I'd like to specify. I don't want to waste my waste my space here, canvas space here. So that is why I'd like to place END. Yeah. END will be equal to, so let me take some space. Okay, one space. Yes, let me save this particular thing here. Let me save this one in my area. Yeah. For one.py. Okay, let me execute this one for a while. So look at this. It is going to produce 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Totally 5 decimal values, decimal integer values have been produced. Okay, totally 5. So what exactly it could be done here in the sense, I will be initialized with so 0. If you take only one parameter for range, I will be initialized with 0. And for every pass of this particular statement, after execution of this particular statement, so I will be reassigned with the next value of the range. So range will be always get start with range will be taken into like this. Range will be so defined something like this in the sense, it could be always specifies so right away from 0. 0 will be the lower bound value, and then followed by 1, 2, 3, and so on up to so 9 it has been generated. Up to 9 it has been generated. When the value, the I value, the loop iterator value, this loop iterator value will be reaches to 10, then when it could be reaches to 10, the for loop is going to terminate it. It will be stopped. It will be stopped and will be moved to next statement. That is the meaning of the range here. Range will be always, if you take a single parameter for range, only one parameter for range, it could be initialized with 0 and so on and so forth. For example, range of 10 in the sense, it could be generated up to 9, and as and when 10 will be taken, obviously your for loop is going to be so finished. Totally 10 different types of so elements are integers have been produced by this particular range. That is the meaning of this range here. Similarly, you could also specify 2 parameters for range here. Range of, for example, 1 comma, for example, 10. Let me consider like this. Now you have to specify here for range, starting value has been specified, and also stopping value has been specified here. So you could term it as start value followed by stop value. If start value could be missed, you are not supposed to mention this start value like this. You have taken only one parameter. So that one parameter will be assigned to stop value, otherwise upper bound. You could also term it as upper bound. So upper bound value could be always specified. Start value may be specified, may not be specified. That is your wish. If you give the start value, what exactly it could be done here in the sense, this loop iterator value could be assigned to this value. If you are not supposed to give this start value, loop iterator will be assigned to 0. That is the meaning. Loop iterator value could be assigned to 0. So finally, range will be generate the values right away from start to stop. If you are not supposed to specify the start, it will be range. It will be generate 0 to stop value. Okay, 0 to stop value. So that is the meaning here. And if you are supposed to specify one more so statement here, range of start value has been specified, number one. Second one is stop value also be specified, and third one is step in the sense, let me give you this one here. For example, let me take this value as 2, and so range of 2 comma 10 comma 2. What does it means? It could be get starts with 2, and every time if you sense the range, it will be automatically increase the value by 2. By default, it could be increased in this particular scenario, or in this particular scenario, it could be increased by 1 by default. But if you specify explicitly, if you specify the range value, step value, then it could be automatically increased that much step here. That is, first it could be generated 2, followed by 4, followed by 6, 4 plus 2, 6, 6 plus 2, 8, 8 plus 2, 10. When it will be reaches to 10, automatically it will be stop the work here. Okay, and similarly, you could also specify something like this. It could be 0, and let me say that is 50, and you could specify some 5. For example, if this is the okay, wait for a while. I'll copy, and I will make it another copy here. Then you could understand very easily. So look at this. So it could be 1. Okay, let me make it as 0, and it could be 50, and here you could make it as 5. So what exactly it could be done here in the sense, it could be generated something like this. First value is 0, and the second value is 0 plus 5, 5. Third value is 5 plus 5, that is 10. 10 plus 5, 15. 15 plus 5 for 20. 20 plus 5, 25, and so on. 25, 30, so 35, 40, so 45. As and when it will be reaches to 50, so automatically it will be terminate the loop. In this way, so you could specify like this. So here you could also always look into this range of so start value, comma, stop value, comma, step value. Okay, like this. These are the points which we have to remember for the range here. So range will be specified something like this. You could first type you have to specify is range of range of stop. If you take stop here in the sense, what exactly it could be taken here in the sense, it will be start with 0 and goes on. Whatever the integer value you have specified with stop, so that particular value minus 1, stop minus 1, up to this particular value, the range is going to be generated. Second kind, I would like to increase one more parameter here. One more parameter will be gets increased. So start, comma, stop. So it has been get starts with whatever the value you have specified. Instead of start, it could be get started or there, and up to stop minus 1, so it could be generated. Okay, it could be generated. For example, let me write example also here. Range of so some 10. What does it mean? It could be generated, so 0, 1, 2, and so on up to 9. It could be generated up to 9. Okay, stop minus 1. If you take something like this, so range of, for example, 1 comma 10 in the sense, how it could be generated here in the sense, how what are the values it is going to be generated here in the sense 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on up to 9. 10 minus 1, that is 9. And third type you may be specified here is range of, so start value, comma, stop value, comma, what is that? One more parameter is, let me consider step value. Okay, while generating the value, it is going to be, so generate something like this. So this is the example for so this range. Like this range could be used. Range could be used in these 3 formats. Okay, you could use in these 3 formats. And if you want to execute the for loop, you must use range. You must use range in terms of integer numbers. Okay, in terms of integer numbers, you must use range here. That is what the point you need to remember. So as far as uh, the for loop is being concerned here. Okay, look at this. So for variable in range of, so start is optional, stop must be specified, step is optional. Okay, then what exactly it is being executed here? First line, the line where exactly you have to, so consider here, this line is a loop header. This particular line is called as a loop header. Then after colon, so when you have to place the colon, loop header is gets over or ends. And then after loop header is gets over, then you are able to write the sequence of actions where you have to execute. And the loop body will be comprises number of statements which have been placed just below of the header, loop header. And you must take care, there is a specific note you need to take care, that is the statements in the loop body must be intended and aligned with the same column. For example, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 spaces will be given by you for first statement. All other statements also be given 4 spaces. Otherwise, one tab. It is very easy to remember, one tab. So one tab will be very easy. So spaces in the sense you maybe gets confused, so that you maybe give some tab. So first statement will be get started after 4 spaces. Every statement within the for loop will be always starts with only 4 spaces. Okay. So intended. So indent must be specified here. If you are not supposed to specify indentation properly, our for loop will be not possible to execute in a proper way. Okay, this is what about the for loop here. And this for loop will be, you could able to generate your for loop like anything here. You could write as much as many number of programs using for loop, and then followed by, so for loop will be, so look at this. People will ask you, a teacher will ask you, so generate 1 to 10 numbers. For example, by using for loop, generate 1 to 10 numbers. Okay, look at this, generate 1 to 10 numbers. So you may be given, so starting value is 1 and ending value is 10. Okay, so for loop everything is okay, because the syntax what we have to return for is okay, and the range whatever the values you are trying to specify, that is also okay, and the print statement, everything syntactically this particular program is correct. Syntactically there is no syntax error, everything is correct. But during the execution of the program, so whatever the expected output, that is not supposed to be come here. Okay, so that is not supposed to be what the teacher asked you. So teacher have asked you, so generate 1 to 10 numbers, but you have given the range value as upper bound value as 10. So it could be generated, so upper bound -1, stop value -1 is going to be generated. So that is the semantic error. That error is called as semantic error. That semantic error in IT industry, these errors also called as bugs, bug, bugs. Okay. So however, whatever maybe industry standards are not required at this moment, these are called as semantic errors. And these semantic errors will also be called as look at this, these are called as off by one error. Off by one error. It could be off by one error will be gets occur with only Python. I mean Python for loop. Okay, it will be gets so only with the Python error. So people will ask you to generate 1 to 100 numbers. 1 to 100 numbers, for example. You may be given, so here 100. Okay, you thought that yes 100 will be, so okay, then you will be run this particular program for a while. Yes, program will be gets run. It will be generated 1 to 100, but you could see the output of this particular program, you cannot find 100 as output here. So such kind of errors are called as semantic errors. In Python, these errors will be called as off by one error. Off by one error. You please remember this particular word. It is a technical word and it is very important for you. Okay. So then what shall we have to do? Whatever the output you are expected, so the upper bound plus one must be given. Plus one in the sense you have to specify one at one. Then obviously it could be generate the proper output here. You could see up to 100 it has been generated. Okay. So this how could you eliminate this half by one error in the sense? So upper bound plus one. You must take upper bound plus one. Okay. Then, however, I have specified here the range value in the range method. Stop value must be increased by one. Okay. Then how could you process countdown loops? In for how could you process the countdown loops? In countdown loops, how could you specify here in the sense? Let me show you how this could be specified. You have to so start our value with upper bound. Okay, otherwise 101 upper bound followed by so lower bound will be next. Okay, lower bound will be next, followed by step value must be -1. Step value will be in positive way, that is count value, count loops, whereas incrementing count loops, whereas count down loops in the sense step value must be -1. So look at this, how this could be run here. Let us have a look here. So in this way it is going to run. Okay. So 100, 99, 98, 96, and so on and so forth in reverse order. Okay. So you need to remember, so the value, the step value must be specified in the countdown loops. In countdown loops, step value must be specified. In count up loops, there is no problem. You need to specify without have any step value or with the step value. That doesn't matter. Okay. Then followed by next loop, very important loop is conditional iteration. So here in for loop, you did not specify even a simple condition. I less than or equal to, I less than, I greater than, something like that. You haven't specified any condition here. Now here you could specify the condition. Yes, you have to specify your own condition. How you could specify here in the sense, while the condition colon, so whatever the rules and regulations which have been discussed with for, same rules and regulations also be done here also. So wanted to display the same kind of output, So if you want to specify the same in terms of while loop, how it could be. So let me say I will be equal to 1, then followed by while. So I less than or equal to 100 colon. So print I comma, so end is equal to some space, 1 or 2 spaces you could specify. Okay, then followed by whatever the loop controller, the loop controller is I here. This loop controller will be incremented. Without increment this loop controller, so it will be always equal to 1. Therefore your loop will be infinite loop. Your loop will be goes to infinite loop. So that is what you need to understand. So therefore, the loop controller must be incremented by 1 here. So therefore, I plus equal to so 1. Otherwise, I equal to I plus 1. You could specify so at our 1. So I equal to I plus 1, or otherwise I plus equal to 1. Then enter and apply one backspace. It will comes to backspace here. Then you could execute this one. You could execute this one here. Let me execute for a while. It could also be generated the same, but the loop will be seen in such a way. The loop will be seen in such a way. Whereas if you write the for, so it's very simple to write, only single line. Okay, 2 lines code will be enough to generate 1 to n numbers. Whereas while loop will be specified approximately 4 lines. Approximately 4 lines here. So that is the difference between these two. However, this while you have a facility with you, you have to specify your own value here. Okay, your own condition here. Okay, by using while loop, let me so write a small program for you. That program will be so reverse the given number. So whatever the number you have given, so that number must be operated with reverse. Okay, let me take that particular thing here. So number will be equal to integer of input. You could take one particular input here, input. So enter a decimal, decimal integer. Okay, you could take our decimal integer here. After taking this one, so you need to reverse. For example, you may be given 1, 2, 3. The output will be 3 to 1. That is the expectation here. Okay. So for this one, number has been taken. So so reserve number will be equal to reserve number. Okay, not required actually. So while so this NUM is greater than 0. Up to this moment, you have to execute this one. Okay, up to this moment, you have to execute this one. So what exactly we are trying to do? Result or reminder REM will be equal to so NUM modulus of 10. You have to get the last and final quotient value by using the remainder value from that one. Then okay, wait for a while. So here, before going to reverse value will be equal to 0 in the beginning. You have to take as 0. Now REV is equal to REV into so 10 plus remainder. You have already did this one, but I am showing how this could be worked out here. Then so whatever the number you have considered, that particular number will be equal to NUM. So floor division to 10 here. You could do this one here. Yes, your things are over. Then finally print the reverse number is comma where exactly it is available with reverse. It is available with reverse. Okay, like this you have to specify. Okay, save this one. rev.py reverse.py, then execute this one. Okay, let me execute for a while here. So it may be ask you to enter some value. So I'd like to enter some 1, 2, 4, 5. So the value which is being after execution of this one, you could get this particular value 5, 4, 2, 1. Okay, the reverse will be happen something like this. Okay, so in this way you could perform. Sorry. In this way, you could perform your operations. Okay. Likewise, you could perform any number of so decimal operations here. So I will show you many number of programs in future. Okay, not right now, in future. And I shall also give you number of so things in terms of thing here. So let us take one more program. That program is nesting of loops. Nesting of loops. Okay, nesting of loops. One more program will be taken into consideration. So nesting of loops in the sense, so you have to provide something like this. While some condition. Okay, let me consider this is first condition. Then here you could take so one more while. So condition 2, okay, one more while and the condition 2. Like this, you could write any number of level of nesting. There is no problem at all. You could enter number of statements here, number of statements. After completion of this loop, you will go ahead and write number of statements under first while loop, and then you have to stop your work. This kind of writing is called as nesting of loops. Nesting of loops. Let us examine how these things will be gets happen here. Let us examine these things, how these things could be. So I'd like to produce the output as some 1. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and so on. I'd like to produce this particular output by using nesting loops. Just observe this one. So how this could be done. Okay. So it could be saved, and let me open one more new, and we'll be do this particular by using. So n will be equal to integer input of enter number of rows. Okay, you could type your own message. There is no problem. Okay. Then initially I will be equal to 1. Okay. Then followed by while. So I less than or equal to n. Up to this moment you have to do. And then j will be equal to 1 again. So while, so j less than or equal to I. Okay. Then what shall we have to do? Print. So j. If you print j and left over something like this, in the sense it could be generated continuously. Let us see how it could be generated. So j plus equal to 1. Things are over for inner loop. Outer loop will be I plus equal to, so 1. Things are over. And finally, your loop is gets over. Let us examine this one. One more point. Wait for a while. After this one, you need to print. So one line has been generated here. One line has been generated here. Okay. So things are over. Okay. Let us execute this one here. TRI1 triangle 1 dot py. Okay. Triangle 1 dot py. Let me execute this one here. For example, let me take some 5. Input as 5. So if you are not specifying something like this, it will be generated something like this. Okay, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. It could be generated line by line. So to avoid this particular kind of thing, so here, what exactly you have to specify? E and D is equal to, so at least one space. You please provide one space. Then obviously it could be so generated here. It could be generated in a proper way. Okay. So let us execute this one for a while. So let me take 5 as input, then you could get the answer in a proper way as a triangle. Okay. In this way, you have to use, so you have to use nesting of loops also. In this way, you could use. Okay. Then, so some other kind of loops are there in specific kind of loops are there in Python. So true loops, while true loops. So there is a Boolean value that is true. So always while loop is going to be checked for whether condition will be true or false. If it is true, continue. If it is false, it will be exited out from the loop here. If you apply true directly, it is being considered that the infinite loop. Continuously it could be executed. Then when you have to stop, for stopping, you have to use one extra statement here, that is break. That is break here. How this could be? Let me evaluate this one for a while here. Okay. So I'd like to produce one more new program. Let me take one more new program here. I'd like to produce so 1 to 10 numbers. When the value will be reaches to 10, let me say 11, I'd like to stop. Okay. So n will be, okay, directly I'd like to produce 1 to 10 numbers. So I will be equal to 1 while, So here I don't want to consider the loop. I'd like to consider TRUE, true directly. True. True in the sense infinite loop. This is infinite loop. Then so print the value of I here, value of uh, value of I, comma. Of course, I'd like to produce end will be equal to with a single space. Let me produce like this. Okay. So as and when I will be equal to, so I plus equal to 1, when this value will be reaches to, when I value will be reaches to 11, I'd like to stop the work. Okay. If I is equal to 11, what shall I do here? Break. Okay. Break here. That's all. Okay. In this way, you have to execute. Okay. So let us, this one is br.py, break.py. Okay, let me execute this one for a while. So it could be generated 1 to 10 numbers. Okay, and when, so this is called as a while true loop. This is called as a while true loop. While true in the sense infinite loop. That is the meaning of while true is infinite loop. This infinite loop will be terminated based on one small condition with a break statement. You have to use a break statement here. Obviously, your while is going to be terminated. And any further statements will be, for example, if I would write a print end of while, for example, end of, so while statement. For example, if I write something like this, so next statement of while will be print of this one. If I would run this particular statement here, so obviously after completion of the term, it is going to generate so that particular statement here. Okay. In this way, so these loops are going to be evaluated. So tomorrow we will see very good exercises, and many of you have not submitted your assignment 1. I don't know what was happened for the first time. So I would like to consider for the next time onwards, assignments must be submitted by you in time. So I shall give you some number of assignments today. Today in the evening, I will post through Google Classrooms. You please observe. And I also posted one link to you to join in the group. Okay, you please click on that particular link and you have to join with us. Okay, with the Google Python's Google Classroom. Okay, without miss any further issues. Okay, so very 32 people, 31 people have attended today. Okay, however, let me send your attendance to university right away. Thank you.